You know, what I love in the world at the moment is that there's so much surfing going on, really, that there's more surfers enjoying the ocean than any other time in our history in all walks of life around the planet. You know, and that is so awesome. I think that is one of the most beautiful things that kind of comes with surfing, and surfers get that feeling within them. You know, they get a sense of being connected to the ocean, and I think thank God for surfing. You know, and at a time when everyone thinks, "Oh my God, it's all fucked," you know, I see these wild responses on Instagram and social media, kind of about this or that, and it's just thank God for surfing. You know, I just feel fortunate about the act and the art that we have. There's a lot of art to it. So art in the act.
Are you ready, boys? Start swimming.
That's Tom Carroll. I'm Jamie Brisick. This is Soundings, brought to you by the Surfer's Journal. The Journal is a member-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Outerknown, Patagonia, Rainbow Sandals, Vans, and Yeti. More like a book than a magazine, the Journal delivers 136 pages of independent storytelling every 8 weeks, covering the people, culture, travel, and art of surfing. To learn more and to subscribe, please visit surfersjournal.com. This episode of Soundings is presented by Costa Sunglasses. If you're anything like me and you spend lots of time around the water, then you know just how important it is to have a good pair of shades. And since 1983, when a group of intrepid outdoorsmen set out to make sunglasses that could stand up to the harsh environments they regularly encountered, Costa remains the choice in eyewear among those committed to life on the water. So whether you're diving in, climbing a board, suiting up, sliding one, leaning back, or all the above, head to costadelmar.com to grab your pair and to see what's out there. Thomas Victor Carroll is a surfing godhead from Newport Beach, Australia. He surfed on the world tour from 1979 to 1993, winning the world title in 1983 and 84, and taking home a total of 26 event victories, including the Pipeline Masters in 87, 90, and 91. In 1988, he made history by signing surfing's first $1 million contract. He won the 1984 Surfer Poll and was inducted into the Australian Surfing Hall of Fame in 1990. In the aughts, he teamed up with his good pal Ross Clarke-Jones to chase big, thick, crazy waves around Australia for the TV series and eventual feature-length documentary, Storm Surfers. Tom and I have been friends since the late 1980s. For a period in the 90s, we were neighbors in Sydney. I fondly recall him scooping me up before first light in his white Toyota Land Cruiser and introducing me, more like hurling me, to some of New South Wales' greatest waves. Tom's surf froth was as big as any I've ever known. In his 2013 autobiography, TC, Tom Carroll, written with his brother, the surf journalist Nick Carroll, Tom was very forthcoming about his drug use. I witnessed some of that, but I had no idea that it would plummet to the depths that it did. Now 62, he's been sober for many years. A calmer, quieter presence, Tom meditates daily and still surfs voraciously. A note to the listener. While recording this conversation, we ran into a couple minor technical glitches, but nothing that stands in the way of this wonderful conversation. Tom Carroll, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's an honor to be on. Absolutely.
So, Tom, you've had a big career. What part of it are you most proud of?
Gosh, what am I most proud of? Wow. I don't know whether proud's a really good thing, kind of a proper word. I'm just super I'm just super happy in many parts of me about how I've had such an extraordinary life, you know, surfing around the world, and got to test myself to my limits, and didn't go half-assed. Sometimes I did, and that didn't work out, So, and whenever I went full tilt, something kind of cool happened, and of course, I took that out on the land. It didn't work out too well, but it was all like today. I just look back and I just feel it's all been an incredible experience, and I can today it just turned out to be a wealth of knowledge, and I've been in touch with parts of myself I would have never been in touch with, along the way. I think if there's anything that I'm really happy about was those experiences of surfing with good friends in intense situations where I've had to kind of, put myself beyond myself and test my given talent, or also given awareness and stuff. So, and at that time I didn't know it, but I was in the midst of that experience that was such a powerful thing that I look back and I go, wow, how lucky was I for that? And some of them are just little glimpses of moments where I've been, like taken off on a wave. I can just think of one right now, just being in the outer reef out behind Sunset there, a place called Phantom Reef, with Ross Clarke-Jones just paddling into these big bombs one afternoon. We got caught out there and the set started coming in from the west. And I just remember just borrowing one of his boards, one of his 10-0s, and just standing up on top of one of those waves and just almost felt like I was facing off against the escarpment behind the North Shore there. And it was like just taken off, and there was not much wind. It was just a bunch of wind at the top of the wave, but it was glassy. Just those sort of experiences that made me connected to what I was doing. And I think even in the competitive world, like where I had to compete under the strain of many different influences around me, and somehow I came out and kind of found my way through the situation to some sort of victory, which was, say, experiences winning, particularly at Pipeline or and places like that, Sunset Beach and Pipeline, those sort of places. So the North Shore is prominent in my feel-good moments and strong, happy place sort of sensations of surfing.
Yeah, from probably 1985-ish onward, I was there for a lot of them. In fact, my very first trip to Hawaii, I want to say I watched you win the World Cup at Sunset, which would have been maybe 82 or 3.
82, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That was my first win, my first tour win. And I was frustrated as all hell seeing Tom Curran beat me in Japan just before arriving that North Shore that winter. And I was like, Tom beat me to his first win, and I beat me to a win on the tour, and I was just like, oh my God, I just got to get this guy. I've got to get a win on the board. And so, that was a big year, and winning at Sunset against MR who was the 4-time world champion, and kind of just sort of laid down some strong kind of groundwork for what was to come.
Yeah, I remember I was on the beach watching it, and Sunset is not always the most spectator-friendly break, but I remember watching you sort of way out there snapping under the lip. But there was another snap under the lip that was a much bigger snap under the lip in terms of the snap that was heard around the world. Can you talk about that year and that wave and that snap?
Well, I'd have to talk about, what it is when someone sort of brings kind of their own genius to the table and expresses it really fully. There's a whole lot of things going on, layers of the human experience going on land and everything that sort of supports that. And I remember that for me, our first daughter was coming. Lisa was, really bulging pregnant on the beach, and I was just high on life. I'd been really, coming to a really good quiver of boards from Pat Rawson that really felt like a part of me, when that feeling is as a surfer, like you don't have to think about the board, it's just doing what you want. And I'm like, and I felt very much on top of my game mentally. I just felt a real surge of purpose in my life, in other areas of my life, not so much. And then to actually be able to, be presented with Pipeline the way it was that day, it was kind of a bit wild. It was the first round, and it had that kind of coming, some of them on the quite a few wash-throughs, and we had the second reef kind of pretty much just taking the second reef. Every now and one would slab out on the first, and it was solid, and I just felt so at home in those conditions at that time. I just loved Pipeline when it was wild, and that was no exception that day. And there's a lot of backwash. It was kind of crazy day, and I was able to, feel this beautiful 7/8, which was real narrow, 17 7/8 wide, and just a fairly thin board. It was a very minimal board, and I just felt it just felt right underneath my feet, and kind of just did what I wanted it to do, and I was just connected to the board really well that day, and that wasn't really like anything. I didn't really think, I'm going to do this big snap thing then. I just, like any surfer does, we just feel the situation, and when we're connected to it, we kind of move through it, and it all sort of came into that moment on that wave, which was a pretty wonky wave. It was a little bit off the reef, and it was standing right up, and I thought, this thing deserves a turn. I just thought, I've been trying to do turns at Pipeline for some years. It wasn't just like that one day. It was just a culmination of years of surfing it since I was, 16, that I kind of really wanted to surf the wave.
Yeah. Not
sort of just hang in there and get a barrel, or get really tight and get a barrel. I wanted to try and surf my way around the wave. And I think back then the boards just didn't fit. Nothing we had that we were actually sort of guided to ride out there by, our heroes or whatever it is, those influences that have been on our life, that we've been, this is the way you've got to ride it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to try and surf it, but I want to bust out of that. But I better ride this because we've got to paddle in this way. Whereas you can see how we've evolved today, and I just love seeing that evolution in surfing the way it is today. It's extraordinary. But that moment was pretty special afterwards, because it was sort of more like a kind of like a reverberation of whatever happened on that wave, and how it affected people was quite extraordinary to me. I was just, wow, geez, wow, that happened really.
No, for the listener who doesn't know, I think the gist of it was that you touched a part of Pipeline that hadn't really been touched, in terms of a big heavy rail carve under the lip. And as you pointed out, we had it in our heads that you needed to ride really big boards back then. And I think they got us into the waves earlier, but they didn't necessarily fit with the bends and shapes and curves and what have you.
Well, the funny thing is, I used to really watch Sean Thompson surfing really closely. As a kid, coming up 15, 16, 17 was a time in my surfing kind of evolution, which was really quite a steep curve. And at that time I was really studying Sean Thompson really closely, and his stance, the way he powered through turns. And when he surfed that big old Spider Murphy pink board, that he said sort of a salmon pink board, big.
Yes, I remember.
Board at Pipeline, kind of a narrow tail, thin tail, forward foil board, and single fins back then in 77. He was, it was in Free Ride, particularly there was that beautiful movie Free Ride, and he did that. He was doing these backside turns underneath the lip, a little bit like Simon Anderson, perhaps with a bit more style and poise. Simon was a very relaxed, kind of stand-up straight kind of guy. Sean was a get down low and twist and extend and, compress and extend sort of style, which is kind of moving in the direction I wanted to go. But but he was doing turns in the pocket at Pipeline, and I thought, well, I haven't seen anyone forehand do it. I hadn't seen anyone do that forehand, so I really wanted to bring something else to the table there for the performance forehand at Pipe.
Yep. You did, and it was heard around the world. The snap that was heard around the world.
Yeah.
Tom, you won 3 Pipeline Masters. Was there one that was the sweetest of all?
I think the first one was the one for me. Like, even though they were all really special, and they all had their special elements, because the surfboards evolved, and I was so lucky to have got someone like Pat Rawson along for the ride with that, and such a genius in the Shaping Bay. But that first one was a big one because we lost our dearest sister, in a car accident just briefly before. It was like the day before the event, and it had been a real crap winter. Like it had been just raining like non-stop for about 5 weeks or something, 4 to 5 weeks. So the water was all brown, and there'd been no waves. It had been sort of Kona winds, and when you're just surfing, back then it was just surfing. There was just seemed to be nothing else on my mind. So I was sort of doing my head in, just sort of trying to, exist with all that sort of fire in the belly. And then I remember having this news, my brother called me up and let me know, and I was, this was the night before that they had the last day of the waiting period for the Pipeline Masters to run, and they had to run it the next day, and I knew it was going to be on, and I had this news in the early evening, and I was just in shock, and I was just devastated, and our beautiful sister had died instantly in a head-on car accident, and it sent shockwaves through me emotionally, and I didn't know quite how to deal with it. I got angry straight away. I was so angry. I'd never been so angry in my life. I unlocked this kind of crazy anger. I had never been like that, and I was just going, I was surprised at myself because I could see myself being angry. I'm going, wow, why is it just anger? There's no crying. This just didn't turn to cry. Didn't get that to that stage yet, and I just was angry. And how could this happen? But then I rang my father up, our father, and because I said, look, I'm just not going to the event. I'm just going to come home straight away on the first flight. That's it. I'm coming home. And he said, no, Tom, I think Joe would really like you to, surf in the event. And I kind of sat there just feeling so kind of beside myself. And he said, yeah, Joe would definitely like you to surf the event, and stay there and surf the event for Joe, I said, okay, I'm going to stay and surf the event for Joe. And so I woke up the next morning, and it was a clear blue sky. Like, it's crazy. This day was like something I could ever even try to reproduce. You could never reproduce. I was in that sort of shockwave in my body, not really knowing what it was. I had no idea the effect this was having on me. But I was just, okay, Pipeline's going to be on. And it was Doug Silver and I. We were staying at Keiki Harley with my wife to be Lisa, who you know. And she said, so I guess and I'll see you down the beach. And I said, well, I'm going to walk down from Keiki Harley. So I walked down the beach from Keiki Harley, trying to kind of figure out what's going on. Doug's sort of walking with me. And I was wearing this helmet for the first time. I'd never worn a helmet at Pipeline before. I'd sort of tried to wear it at Rocky Point a couple of times. It was a bit annoying. But I've got to wear a helmet, and I've been looking to use a helmet for the last 3 years previous to that, going, I just want to go for a Pipeline. And I just know that I'm going to hit this reef. I've hit it enough. If I hit it with my head, something could go really bad, wrong, and I'd already experienced Steve Massafella, who was a really good guy, who was a person in 1984 who hit the reef with his head, and the next year when I saw him, he was a completely different human being.
Wow.
And he slurred his speech. He was very different. And I've gone, and when I heard he'd actually been medevaced out, you know, back in '84, we never heard it from anyone. Never knew what went on. Never he'd disappear. And it was the next winter where I got to see him. And I went up to say hello to him actually in the water at Sunset Beach. He had this bright orange helmet. And from the beach, I actually remember saying to someone, "Who's the idiot with the bright orange helmet on out there?" They said, "Oh, that's Beaver Massafella. He's got a helmet on now because he had to have a plate put in his head." And I go, "Oh, from pipe that day. Oh my God,
Jeez.
he's got a plate in his head." And so what I did was I got to see him and say hello to him. He's usually really kind of a nice person to talk to. He was a totally different person. And from that moment, I went, "Oh my God, I want to go for it at Pipeline. If he can get hit in the head, I'll get injured easily. I just want to save my head." So I eventually started from that point. That was '84. It took me till '87 to actually get a helmet and actually figure it out because it was tricky. You know, trying to find a helmet back then was really hard for surfing, and I definitely didn't want to have one like his, which was just going to float. He had a big old chunk of foam around it. But in a roundabout way, just to cut it short about here, I got myself a helmet finally. That morning was glassy, just sheet glass, whole new different North Shore, and this fresh west swell coming in, like a really strong, long, good period west swell, and a totally different North Shore, good brown water, but we ended up paddling out at log cabins and going past rock pile and coming into Pipeline behind Pipeline. So it took my time getting out there. It was super early in the morning. The sun hadn't come up above the escarpment yet. And I got to Pipeline from behind. I'd never paddled into Pipeline behind it like that. But in a west swell, it actually seems really small. It's much smaller at log cabins than it is at Pipeline because the swell moves between the reefs and goes straight into Pipeline. So it was much bigger down on the reef at Pipe, and it was about 8 feet solid, maybe a few bigger ones, but it was just coming in really fast in over the reef. And so all I could think of was, you know, wearing the helmet and just put, you know, and I'm in a kind of, I don't know what I could say, but other than a kind of a little bit more detached than I normally am, like because of the condition I'm in from hearing the news, and I'm here to win the event. I'm not sure what's going to happen today. I was so present. It just brought me to this moment so clearly. And throughout the day, I had an experience with competing that I'd never had. I never could repeat. And that was that I couldn't do one thing wrong. I was so completely in the flow of the moment, and I couldn't. Everywhere I paddled, everywhere I sensed a set coming, it was there. Everywhere I kind of moved around in the heat at the timing, everything sort of sat perfectly for me to stand up on the podium that day and say, I want to give this to my sister, you know, like, and it was just one of those moments, and I'll never forget it. It was just a powerful, all-encompassing experience to be under the influence of that news, and then being able to express and dedicate. Now when I hear someone dedicating something to someone if they're at their highest level in their sport and they've got to go and push themselves and they're dedicating it to something bigger, I go, and particularly if it's a loss of someone close, I go, watch this person. I go,
Yeah.
Watch what happens with this person. They're going to send it proper and they're going to pull it.
No, I remember that was such an inspired performance, Tom. And you pretty much kept it low key, right? Like not a lot of the news wasn't out. You kept it quiet.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything else really.
Yeah. And I remember thinking about it later, thinking it was almost as if you received this. And I know that you'd wanted to win the Pipeline Masters for many, many years. And it was sort of this like, this absolutely the worst possible thing happens and the timing could not be worse. And I remember thinking, wow, it's almost as if Tom has sort of received this news and just gone, okay, this is terrible, 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 but give me 24 hours to just do this thing that I've been working my whole life to do before I actually allow it into to inhabit me, all the feelings.
Yeah.
Would that, did it feel like that, or did you let it in and then let that fuel the performance?
It's hard to say. When I look back at it, I didn't treat myself too well after the event because of all the, I ended up sort of sinking into a whole bunch of drugs and try to drown all the feelings out. And so I didn't really kind of, I didn't get to really process the day and the experience until many years later. It's like it all kind of happened on the day. I experienced it clearly. I can really feel it now. Like, and I get, when I was talking about it, I could feel the emotion flying through me. And I think that, but it's, I wish I had the information I have today on how to sort of move through these things. At the time, I just didn't have it. I just didn't know what I didn't know. And, and I kind of, I was introduced to the kind of drugs that the drug, particularly for me, was kind of a very, very much an egocentric drug, cocaine, and it was just like on flow, it was everywhere on the North Shore during that period, and as soon as I touched it, it was just like it all disappeared, and I didn't. Until the come down comes on, then you're just like really in it. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. It was horrible. But the other way was a different experience too.
Yeah. No, it was, that period's really interesting. And in my experience, you and your contemporaries were sort of ushering in this new sort of athleticism and training. And I remember when I first met you, you were managed by Peter Manstead, and you'd signed the first $1 million contract with Quicksilver, and you were training and riding bikes, and you were sort of pushing yourself on this physical level. But then on the flip side of that was like cocaine in abundance, which they seem like they might contradict one another, but maybe they went hand in hand. But that was the era.
That was the era. It was just, it was ample. And I think just the way the era was sort of playing out, we didn't know what we didn't know yet. And we're in for the big lesson. And, the lesson was coming in hot. And I think with, particularly in the 80s and 90s, it was pretty big. And then so, but it's it was sort of like, for me, it was just an unconscious thing that was going on. We just sort of like, this is what we did. We just went hard at everything.
Yeah.
So you just sort of went hard, you went this way, you went the other way hard, and you kind of trying to, balance it up in between somewhere. but that wouldn't work because you just get back over the other side. I just push myself really, really hard, and then I go and party really, really hard. And I mean, I don't think it's probably not uncommon today, but in some areas, I'm sure, in certain ways, because it's always ever present, that sort of need to kind of, if we're sort of working really hard, we're just striving to become really good at something, or just pushing ourselves. And if we're not aware, this other side sort of starts to want to compensate. Perhaps that might be part of how the things, nature structures itself, so within us. But it's like but if we're not being able to see it, it's pretty tricky. Mm-hmm. It's become unconscious about what you're doing, and then let's see what happens then.
Yeah. You and I have talked about this over the years, but the kind of charge of being a great surfer and, winning Pipeline Masters and being sort of cheered up the beach and wearing that fabulous crown type thing at the Pipe Masters and having the entire beach as far as the eye could see, applauding you and cheering you. I would imagine it's a wonderful thing. I was on the sidelines or in the crowd cheering for you during these times. But it can also have a kind of, it can also lead you to, it's not an easy one to come down from. Let's put it that way. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, it's a strong influence on our conscious state. Like at the time, if we don't have a solid feeling of being on the ground with our feet, if we're lifted off the ground easily and we don't have a sense of being grounded, it's just easy to go for the ride. It's just super easy to go for the ride and really sort of and have that incredible amount of attention. Probably at some level you've been kind of crying out for it, some other areas you're compensating for some other areas of your life, and by reaching these goals, which is not, like I said many times, there's nothing good or bad. If you're trying to come to this with a kind of a view that nothing's good or bad, it's just happening. But at the time, I was filled up, and ego from try to get a good clear eye on that is that it just starts to buy into that full sense of self of who I am and the story. And if I create that big story about I'm this sort of big thing that's untouchable at the very height, and I need that. I need that adulation. I need that regularly. It starts to become highly. Then it becomes a tricky world for us, I think, to live in with any kind of balance. It's like it's a wonderful feeling being able to connect with everyone and at some level actually give a whole bunch of people a bunch of joy, and everyone comes along for the ride. And and that part I really liked. I really liked being able to connect with people and see people get so much joy out of what I'd just done. I remember that was a really lovely feeling. But some part of me cried out for the sort of like, can I have a bit of myself back? Because it's almost like people just, you just throw yourself out there. and then you kind of come back to yourself and go, I've got to get a bit of myself back. I feel like I'm shattered in 1,000 pieces just by doing that. And so you kind of, perhaps that sensation of getting your, not having any skills in those areas, those any mental skills in those areas where you can actually bring yourself back to the middle. When I say the middle, that's kind of a little bit, hold that lightly, because I'm like, you can never really perfectly lay down the middle. You can sort of wobble around in it, and it's like you can wobble around sort of more a stable space. Whereas that really is like, what it does is it sort of creates a bipolar condition in the being when you're up in front of all these people and everyone's just giving you all this attention, and you get this soak it all in, and you kind of up here somewhere. Like I said, you sort of lifted off the ground by the experience. Everyone else is going along for the ride. Everyone's in it. And then you get taken away by just life, because it doesn't last. It sort of dissipates the energy. And then you go off and do your thing. And if you're not aware and you can't see it for what it is, you're more open to that big wobble on the other side of the experience, where you go, oh my God, I want that back, I want that back. I want more of that, and I want more of that. How do I get more of that? And so we'll try to get as many wins on the board as possible. And when that's not possible, what am I going to do? To get that back. And I think that's when we become susceptible to, if we don't have support, if we don't have that grounding and that, skills in that, you can be very, and you got some other sort of trauma, you got other stuff going on in the underlying that sort of needs that, it's got this other hunger for that attention, then we're kind of either going to win as much as we can, or we're going to find another way to kind of satiate that, that sensation within us that's that hungry, so hungry for it, that attention.
Yeah. So do you feel when you stepped off tour, was that when, did drugs come in stronger then than they were while you were on tour?
Yeah, so after coming, making a decision to come off the tour and sort of wind it down was hard enough as it is, and that took a couple of years of like doing the tour half-assed was no good for me, because it just opened up the door for just sort of loafing around on the tour, doing nothing but sort of like making the odd few heats, making the odd semi or quarter, and not really wanting to win, and then partying with the crew that liked to party, which I had a lot of connections in that, in that area, and so and it was just what was fun at first turned out to be a bit of a kind of a leg in for trying to escape what's really going on at the deeper level, and that is like, let's get off the tour time properly and get into being a father, which you have 2 young daughters and a beautiful wife and with a wonderful life ahead of you if you want it, so I was still caught up in being a pro surfer, and I'd say a big part of me was like that. A big part of me also wanted to be a father, wanted to be the father of my beautiful daughters. So that was really had a lot of gravity to it, and I wasn't really ready for that emotionally. I don't think I was mature enough at that point, but eventually that sort of came around. But I did try to escape or get that ego, like stroking. I found that in the use of the odd cocaine binge, and that was, I knew that was bad for me. I knew that was deleterious. It was just, and then I'd party with friends, and that wasn't enough, because you only go so far, and I was always the one that wanted to go further. I was never the one, I'm just going to pull up here. No.
Yeah.
That was not me. It was just not me. I had other stuff underneath me. It was underlying the emotional disruptions that were not dealt with, earlier in life. But were coming up, that's for sure, at the time.
And then you hit bottom.
Hit rock bottom. I found, it found me, and I found it in 2006, and by then I'd sort of found an amphetamine that was really strong, and it was actually taken place of the cocaine, which was kind of annoying after using this stuff, and this stuff was more kind of like, it was functional. I could function on it. I could actually be a part of my daily life and do things and get things done, and I was like active in parenting and so on like that, but I wasn't, it starts to take hold and starts to take us away from all the things that we really love doing. And so surfing became like literally a matter of going out for like 15 minutes because I just didn't have the patience to go surfing. It was like, what do you mean there's no waves out here? Like, come on, waves. Oh my God, I've got to go in. I was just insane. But it was, I get the effect of being in the water, which would bring me home to some degree, which was really important. But falling into the rock bottom was really important, and is the most important part of it, to actually hit some sort of bottom where we can actually turn around and ask for help and receive the help that's there, always been there. the love that's always been there. So that was 2006. Some many years after I really realised that I had a problem. I was like, probably first time I sought real professional help was in 91, and then it was 2006 when I finally sort of kind of surrendered to the process of recovery, and I was sort of open to it, which was, you know, it's, you know, there's, yeah, drug, basically, you know, excess, an expression of addiction at that level is really just covering up pain, you know. But it was really good to get in there and be supported. And I mean, today it's like I can't imagine being in that state. It's all on offer. Like there's that little part of me is still in there. It's not just sort of just disappeared. I've still got the glint in the eye, you know. It's still in there, but being aware of it is the big thing, and being close to recovery, friends, people I'm, you know, close with today are people in recovery, and I can be of use. I can be of use today. I can actually, be a father to my beautiful daughters. I can sort of, that's been going on for a while now, 17 and something years now. So that growth pattern, that comes about as recovery offers us a bit of a way of moving towards growth and then growing emotionally. But it's never a perfect forward path, though, that one. It's just like any sort of evolutionary sort of movement. It's like up. It goes maybe a couple of steps up, a couple of steps back, a couple of steps up, a couple of slide back. Kind of like evolutionary processes are real sort of just a bit forward and back, bit forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. You can see it in all aspects of nature. Sort of like, something kind of just the subtle movements forward over time.
Yes. Yep. What are your days like now, Tom?
Well, I'm just engaged, and I still love my surfing. Like I'm actually teaching meditation out of my home, which I bring people through courses of meditation, which is pretty. Like that's the last thing I thought I'd be doing for sure. Which is amazing, seeing people get the gift of that and bring that into their life and sort of help people sort of stay on the path with that. And that can be all walks of life, all sorts of different people. Some are surfers, some many aren't. I coach some surfing too with young kids. I have a group of surfers around my local area from the ages of around 7 to about 14. Which I call Tom's Groms, little groups. I have 2 of those groups on a Friday morning and a Sunday morning, which I love. I never thought I'd be a surfing, coach in this way, but again, it's just something new. It came in over the pandemic, actually, when the kids couldn't go and do their normal sports at school. A parent just reached out to me, who just lived around the corner here, said, I've got 2 boys who are just really active. We need to do something, and we can go surfing. I was wondering if you'd give them some surf coaching. I said, yeah, I'll give it a go. And I thought I could maybe do it with 1 or 2, but now I'm doing it with a bunch of kids, and it's really cool watching it going on. And it's not about a high level perhaps it can be, but I'm not at that. It's not that kind of coaching. It's just about being in the ocean, what it's like to be in the ocean, how to enjoy it, really engage in it, and then I get in a little bit more technical with my Sunday session, where we have a bunch of kids who have gone into the high school stage who are just really needing to improve. Well, I can see that there's improvement to come for them, and I can sort of see where they're moving to and how I can sort of guide them. They pull from all different areas of the act of surfing, and give them my experience as much as I can. And it's been a wonderful journey, and I never thought I'd be doing it. But again, just one of those cool things that comes along. I stayed open enough to soak it in and let it happen. And also I'm doing developing some speaking, which I'm talking with a large group right now about transitions, how we transition and change. And I do talking to groups in the corporate sector at the moment, which is, and actually bring a practice to that with mindfulness meditation, not transcendental meditation, which is using a mantra, which I teach and I'll practice, but that's more along the lines of mindfulness practice with breath work, and just influencing the breath. It's not like a Wim Hof breath work, but it's just bringing people into a practice that they'd never even consider. Mm-hmm. So, and when we do that, and we do it as a group, it really shifts people. It's pretty fascinating to be in a room when it happens.
You've managed to stay incredibly fit.
Yeah. I do. I've had some challenges in that area. I literally surfed my ass off. I actually tore my. We met in California, and I think when I was sort of suffering a bit from, I couldn't really surf yet. Remember?
Yes, I remember.
We saw each other with Jesse.
Yeah.
I literally, I tore my glute minimus and medius muscles off the bone. Just through being, the doctor said, look, you just worn out your body, Tom. You really pushed it, and that was in the front hip. As you go down the wave, up and down the wave, you really kind of put a lot of pressure into that front hip. It takes all the load of the fall line. We're looking for vertical face, and so I'm always looking for vertical face to move up and down. And as we get older, the muscles stay strong and the tendons tend to get a little bit more brittle. And that's what happens. Been happening. I had a shoulder reconstruction, that tendon repair in the hip, and I had a new knee put in. It's all since 2017. So just coming back into the surfing now, the last month and a half from surgery last year, midway in June, almost a year ago. So it's been a big haul. And learning how to actually rehab the body and be really kind to it as I come into this sort of 63rd year of my life. So been pretty active. Surfing on a daily basis. Foiling has been really, really fun to learn how to foil, using the foil. Just another way of riding the wave. It's not using the vertical face anymore. It's like we're just using the crest as the energy source, that kind of moving kind of bubble of curvature underneath the surface, and learning a whole new way of standing on something and allowing yourselves to sort of flow with the ocean, the water movement. And now all of a sudden I'm looking at water completely different. But it was one of the reasons why my ass came apart last year.
Right.
Yeah, but I don't really wish that upon anyone, that one, because it was a big haul. But that's been a part. I'm just slowly coming back to the foil now. It's been much harder. I've been just come back to the basics, surfing kind of from mid-lengths to little boards now. So I was on a longboard for a while, and then I'm come to mid-lengths and so on. Yeah, and to short boards down to small boards now, which is nice feeling. Twisting the body. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. But always trying to move the body, challenge the body. Yeah. In a smart way.
Yeah, you've always been good that way. And you've also always, or not always, but I've seen you in the last few years really experimenting with design.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's been so fun. I'm really lucky. I've been able to tap into some really good board makers in my. I've got one guy I work with. His name's Max Stewart of Isometry Surfboards. He's been really, really good to work with as far as having an open mind and where we want to go. And with surfboard design. So we play with mostly the design of the board, and he works on really. He's like a master with the epoxy finish. We use a PU blank because that's sort of in my blueprint, but we use the epoxy, glassing, and his sanding is just like next level. So it's one of those things, the sanding is kind of like it creates that beautiful finish on that piece of art that's underneath. If it's not done well, the sanding can really ruin a really good shape. But but we've been playing with all. I love to keep an open mind on what to ride on the what the magic carpet's going to be underneath the feet and in the mind, because it's really what's inspiring.
Yes. Yeah. What's inspiring to you? What fires you up most?
I like watching. Being with the kids has been really good. That's been super inspiring, and a really lovely sensation being with the kids and watching them and how they improve. I'm being fired up by watching the best surfers. I love watching how the women are developing their surfing. This is one really exciting thing in my mind that it really, really fires me up, seeing how the women are really coming to the game of riding the wave and the art, and they're placing themselves into the front and centre of things, really from who they are now, and that's inspirational to watch. For me, I get a big kick out of watching the women on the WSL, and in all surfs now. I see many different girls, young girls. I've got a couple of girls in my Groms group, and they are really inspirational, just the way they are and how they come to it. It's just beautiful to watch, and the inspiration that inspires me a lot. I still love watching, when they have the heritage heat on, like they had a heritage heat on at Snapper Rocks, and they, had Mick Fanning and Joel and Kelly and Steph and Ockie, and I love watching those. I watched Tom and Ockie at Bells, and I just love watching those as well. I love seeing those go down.
Yes, me too.
I do love watching the top surfers push themselves. Guys like, at the moment, you've got Jack Robinson and Griffin Colapinto, and you've got these amazing surfers. I mean, I love seeing John surfing WA just recently. Just that on-edge surfing,
yes,
it really inspires me. I still dream thinking that I can do it. And the thing is, being 63, it's just not going to happen. But I can sort of get the feel. I can kind of go along for the ride with them, and that's what's wonderful. I can sort of go along for the ride of performance with them and watch it, and I get a real good kick out of that. And the cool thing is with social media, you can kind of talk to them as it's happening and sort of send them messages, and you can kind of enjoy the ride, get close to it to some degree. I love, there's one in town right now at Narrabeen. It's surfed pretty touch and go. The sandbars at Narrabeen haven't been very good for a while. It's been quite straight, and so they're just going down there and watching those, the men and women down there. It's been awesome. And I'm going to be actually, I think they're going to put us out in the water. Damien Harvin, myself, and Lane Beachley, and probably Rob Bain and stuff on Sunday afternoon. So let's see what happens there. It's just good to be in the water, with those guys.
Nice. Do you have a favorite surfer?
When Gabe Medina's on fire, I love watching Gabe surf, and I love watching it. I love watching Nicola and Gabe, sending it with all their athletic ability. And really, when it all comes together, it's kind of like, holy crap, did that just happen? You just go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Whereas you get a sense with Griff. Griff's got a bit of that in there, but you get a sense with and Jack's got a little bit of that in there. But you can see with those guys, there's other flow involved that I sense, and Ethan's really just the beautiful. He's got those beautiful lines in there. He's got almost like a combination of the art and application of Joel and Mick, you know. So it's sort of, and that's a bit of a wild call out, but because Ethan's Ethan, but the way he sort of brings it together, he's got this sort of, you don't quite get how difficult what he's doing because it looks so nice, you know, that sort of thing with the Joel Parkinson you should present.
Yep. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to?
You know, what I love in the world at the moment is that there's so much surfing going on, really, that there's more surfers enjoying the ocean than any other time in our history in all walks of life around the planet. You know, and that is so awesome. I think that is one of the most beautiful things that kind of comes with surfing, and surfers get that feeling within them. You know, they get a sense of being connected to the ocean, and I think thank God for surfing. You know, and at a time when everyone thinks, "Oh my God, it's all fucked," you know, I see these wild responses on Instagram and social media, kind of about this or that, and it's just thank God for surfing. You know, I just feel fortunate about the act and the art that we have. There's a lot of art to it. So art in the act.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Thomas.
Yeah, fantastic, James.
Soundings is brought to you by the Surfer's Journal and is produced by me, Jamie Brissick, and Jonathan Shiflett. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Our theme song is Give Me a Wave by Oscar Matsumiya and Paz Lenchantin. The Surfer's Journal is a reader-supported publication made possible by sponsorship from FCS, Finisterre, Howler Brothers, Outerknown, Patagonia, Rainbow Sandals, Vans, and Yeti. The journal is published bi-monthly. If you haven't done so yet, I encourage you to visit surfersjournal.com and subscribe. This episode of Soundings is presented by Costa Sunglasses, the badge of the explorer. For over 40 years and counting, Costa has remained steadfast in their dedication to not only crafting the most durable, functional, and long-lasting eyewear, but in protecting our waterways and natural resources. Whether you're on the back deck scanning for yellowtail, eyeing a set swinging wide at an empty point, camped out on a bluff at the end of a rotted two-track, or anywhere and everywhere in between, Costas are built to help you see what's out there. Head over to costadelmar.com today to find just the right pair for you, no matter where the water takes you. Thank you for listening to Soundings, and until next time.